Hey, welcome to the Copy Closer podcast. Today, I've got an amazing guest for you, someone that I've been friends with for a while. He was there at the start of my journey, and I always looked up to this guy, saw him kicking butt, and now I'm looking at him now, and he's like skyrocketed past pretty much anyone else I've ever seen in my own network. So today, I've got Jonathan Foltz. What's up, Jonathan?
What up, my brother? Good to connect, man. Yeah, we've been friends for a minute now, so it's always good to like catch up and everything like that. So yeah, man.
So Jonathan and a few of his buddies had a really cool mansion here in Arizona. And it was a few years ago, probably, I don't know, how long ago was that? It was like,
I think it was 2017. I think it was 2017. Yeah.
Okay. So it was a little bit ago. And I remember I used to go there, hang out with these guys because I was just trying to absorb as much as I could. These guys were all heavy hitters, kicking butt, doing amazing stuff in e-com. And I'm over here just like a little marketer, a little copywriter, just trying to sponge everything up that they gave me. And I was able to get around these guys. They taught me a lot about paid ads, about what kind of stuff works in the marketplace. And then eventually I won't get too deep into your story, I'll let you say it, but eventually Jonathan ended up moving, I think to Miami or doing some other stuff. And I've just been watching him from afar, seeing all the different companies he's acquiring, all the different things that's going on. And I'm like, this guy went from what I knew him as an internet marketer to like a real dang-on businessman over here, just kicking butt. And I think we also went to the same high school, but may not have known each other. I went to Palmetto back
yeah, Palmetto High, man. Palmetto High. Also, Jeff Bezos went to Palmetto High too, right?
That's right. That's right.
The water, man. It's in the water.
So for the folks who may not be familiar with you, man, can you tell us a little bit about your journey? I know you had like a brick and mortar business, I think, before. So maybe just start with where you started and kind of take us to where you are right now, if you will.
Yeah. So I really started off as like a kid that was like hungry for something, you know what I mean? Like I was a kid that was like hungry for something. My parents were like moving around like crazy. My dad was like in petroleum and oil. So like they literally had him moving from here to here. So I was like born in Canada. I was actually supposed to be born in South Korea. And they like moved at the last minute to Canada instead. So I was born abroad. Then we went to New York, went down to Miami, then lived in Argentina, lived in Colombia for like 7 years. Came back to Miami a few times. Little short snippets. I lived in Peru, Venezuela, the UK, Paris for a few months. And basically like, I got this taste of like globalization and just seeing like what is out there and how big the world is, right? And I was really obsessed with basketball. And this tells you a lot about like why I'm the way that I am. But, like in 9th grade, I was whooping up on I was really good. I may not have been of height, but I was whooping up on the varsity basketball players in street ball. So I went out to try out for the team and I was like, this is going to be easy, and I get literally cut in the first cut. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like, it destroyed me as a little kid because like I was obsessed with basketball so much. And I thought I was going to be in the NBA and I thought I was going to be the most phenomenal basketball player. And I was just so obsessed that it hit me so hard. I went home that night and I thought to myself, I'm like, damn, if I'm not good at basketball, it was crazy. I didn't even think like, oh, let me talk to the coach or, oh, I'll try out next year. More like, okay, if I'm not good at basketball, then I'm not good at anything if I can't be good at basketball. So that was a tipping point for me to create a void of like, okay, I'm not good at anything. So it's like, I kind of wanted to be good at something. And my entrepreneurial journey really started. I did little hustling things here and there, like sold basketball cards, never made money with that, selling little CDs and stuff in the beginning stages. And it was the point in time that I realized I was good at something was when, this is when all the kids were like downloading from Kazaa and all these other freaking websites.
I remember this.
Yeah, everyone did it. Everyone did it. No one even knew that it was like that you weren't supposed to do it. We were just little kids basically going on this and exploring this new land. Like all my friends were in it. And I got my hands on somehow the Marshall Mathers LP 2-3 weeks before it was supposed to come out. So I thought to myself, I'm like, oh man, this is a great opportunity to like sell the Marshall Mathers LP. Sorry, Eminem. And basically what I did is like, I downloaded them all and back in the days, it would take an hour to 2 hours just to upload one freaking CD. So it took me like a freaking week to like get all these CDs together. And what I did is I went to Best Buy, bought all the little things, the cassette things, then I'm like, okay, I got to design these things. So I'm like, well, let me figure out how to design it. So I designed the covers myself, cut it with scissors,
Wow.
got the back. The songs were probably all out of order, but it was whatever, I put them in the back. So I emptied my book bag and I took it to school. And I was like, I had a whole book bag full of them and I sold every single one. And I was like, holy shit, like what the hell? Like it was more money than I had ever seen in my life. And I was like, wow, like, okay, maybe I am good at something, like maybe I am good at something. And so much so that the rest of the school, the next day, everyone had the Marshall Mathers LP. And so many people were trading it that the principal came on the intercom and said, hey, we've noticed that there's a bunch of people, everyone in the hallways, you guys are selling CDs. You're not allowed to do this at school. So I was like, holy shit, like I just caused a mini revolution in this place, like it was so cool.
How old were you at this time?
I think it was ninth grade.
Ninth grade, so you're like 14.
I believe it was ninth or 10th grade. So in high school at Palmetto High.
At Palmetto.
So it was cool. It was cool to see that. But then from there, I just started really getting into entrepreneurship. You know what I mean? So like I really enjoyed being good at something. That void had created something within me. I wanted to be the best. I wanted to be the best at something, do really well at something. And I finally found something. So as time went on, we did all that stuff, and I go into high school and I start doing all kinds of stuff. I get out of high school and I start like a pet shop. So like one of my buddies was showing me like what he was doing with the pet shop and everything like that. And basically from that point on, I started getting into the mentality, like, okay, what can I do to basically get myself to this next level? You know what I'm saying? Like, what can I do to get myself to the next level? So after that, I got myself into some trouble. So what ends up happening is that I meet some guy that was really freaking smart. I get myself into trouble, basically growing marijuana. So I got myself literally.
I need to laugh at that. I'm about to grow some legally here in Arizona, so it's crazy.
Which is crazy because like I got myself into trouble. I got myself arrested. Okay, so literally I got arrested for doing this. Growing marijuana, which obviously you could do legally now and everything like that, but this is the time and everything like that. And I went into the proper direction. So that's when I would say that like, it was a little bit of like the hero's journey because like, I went into a space where, like it wasn't really my MO. I just was involved with the wrong people and I just made some really bad decisions. But it was because of that event that I met some super amazing people basically in jail and everything like that. Like super smart people.
So you got arrested, went to jail.
Yeah.
And, damn, dude, you're like a superhero. Most people don't come out of that.
Dude, here's the thing. No, I went to prison. So I actually went to prison. So a little kid, I was like 21, 22 years old. So I went to prison. They sent me to the wrong prison of a maximum security one by accident. So here you have a young kid there for freaking weed, okay? When all these other people are there for like, some vicious crimes and all that stuff. So it's like, I went through that progression of like manning up very early, you know what I mean? And like, I took it in a great way where I got myself surrounded by really freaking smart people, including one of the longest running senators that Florida ever had. Actually, he's the longest running senator, which was Mr. Childers. So it's like a mentor came to basically help support me. And he's one of the smartest people I've ever met. He was the president of the Senate for 2 years, the dean of the Senate for 2 years. And basically I was like really almost like best friends with this guy, which was like an amazing businessman and one of the most, audacious senators of all time. 32 years. You can't even be a senator for 32 years in Florida anymore. So like he has the record for that. And I got to basically soak in information and, just the way that he does things in a great way. So that was like kind of like the hero's journey for me. And it just taught me, it's like, okay, I want to do things the right way. Definitely not getting myself into trouble ever again. And I could do this time in a great way or in a bad way. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, let me study like crazy. So that's where I got into reading books. So it's like, since then I've read over 1,000 books. I got obsessed with reading into books and checking all these things out. And I prepared myself basically to be in a better position. And right after that is when I got into, believe it or not, the reptile industry. So I had a pet shop before all that trouble started. I had a pet shop, and I got actually hustled by a 12-year-old kid, which has also opened up my mind. So I needed to have reptiles for a certain holiday, right? So there's a holiday coming out. It was Christmas. And I had no bearded dragons, right? So I was online looking for bearded dragons. Usually you buy them for like $15, $20 a piece. So some kid on Craigslist had like 20 bearded dragons or 19 bearded dragons. So I hit him up. I'm like, hey, I want to buy these. Can you come to my pet shop so I can check these out and see what they're about? So he's like, sure, I'm going to come. You know, I didn't know he was like 12 years old. He comes, he brings them in a box. I'm like, man, these look pretty good. He's there with his mom. And then I'm like, okay, cool. Perfect. So I'm going to give you, how much was it? $3,800 or sorry, 19 times 20. So basically not 3,800. So basically $380. And then the kid is like, he's like, no. He's like, dude, he's like, I need $90 for each one of these. And I'm like, wait, I'm like, dude, I don't even sell them for $90. He's like, look, he's like, supply and demand. So he's like, if you don't want these, I'll sell these to someone else and I'm going to sell them. And he literally starts walking away and I'm looking at his mom. I'm like, what is this kid? She's like, hey, it's his business. And I'm like, come here, hold on, come back. So I literally had to take out and start handing $100 bills to this little 12-year-old kid. And I was like, I am in the wrong business. Like breeding reptiles, this is like freaking, I just got hustled by a little kid. I was obsessed with bearded dragons. I just love them, you know, like the colors that you could get. And that's where when I came out, I basically started drafting out a plan to do it. And I quickly became one of the top breeders, believe it or not, in the world of bearded dragons. So I was world known, world famous for breeding bearded dragons, like very rare ones I had a line called Fire Red bearded dragons, and I would ship them to, you know, Holland and Germany and, you know, all over the world. You know, so as that time went on, I just had many businesses. You know, since the beginning of my time, I've had 28 different companies. Obviously, a lot of them have failed. You know, but I was just very hungry to like do something, you know what I mean? And make up for what I did wrong too. It's like, okay, I want to have impact now. Like I want to do something more impactful, not just only think about the money. Like my psychology completely shifted after something like that. And like you said, a lot of people, I had some friends, there's only one person I stay in contact from in there, but almost everyone else, they're just on the same page. So it's kind of hard to get out of that position and everything like that. So, you know, I looked at it in the proper way. So as I had this company, you know, I ended up selling this company. I started Digital Age Business, which was my marketing agency as soon as I got out also, but just to like help, because I got screwed over by so many marketers. I was like, you know what, let me do this myself. I had read a book called, there's two books that were the most impactful for me during this time that I was away. One of them was basically the 4-hour work week, right? So it's like, okay, you can do a lot more work with a little bit of time, you delegate the stuff out. And then Thomas Friedman's The World is Flat. So basically there was a newer version, but he showed you how you can have a global presence and you could do kind of like arbitrage from other countries. So I started utilizing all these people like in India, Pakistan, Colombia, and utilizing their services at a much cheaper rate, facilitating it, making it better, making it make sense, and giving it to clients. And then I just gave really good services. So people just kept coming back. I never even marketed my agency ever. Zero marketing. It was just done I did such a good job. I would overdo it for everyone that people would just, hey, you got to work with Jonathan. Hey, you got to work with Digital Age Business. Hey, you got to work with, you know, Umair, my business partner. Yeah. So like, people were just like coming back to us. To this day, although I've stopped doing it, I still get a ton of people hitting me up because they want some support because I did such a good job. So instead of being out there, like I just did such a damn good job that helps. So in 2000, so we met, it might've been, I think it was 2016 and 2017 for the Marketers Mansion, but in 2000, what led me to go to the Marketers Mansion with Lawrence Aponte, Damien, Russ, Aaron Burton, was that we went to a Chris Record event, right? I forgot the name of the event. It was like the college, the university that they were creating.
Yeah.
So we all stayed in a house together. And I had just previously sold my reptile breeding company to one of my business partners. So I had it was 3 of us. I had started it. I brought him in. had a huge fight with one of my business partners where basically I had to buy him out. And then I ended up, it worked out because then I went ahead and I sold it to one of my other business partners. So at first it might've seemed really messed up and like, oh, we got in this huge fight, all these problems, but it actually worked out in the end because I got to sell the company out. That was in 2016. And that's when I got into Shopify. I went to this event. And that's where we had an idea. And I thought to myself, I was like, man, what if we had, like a house? This is so fun what we're doing because we rented a big house. I'm like, what if we were like to like actually have us all come together and start like a little accelerator or something like that. And then, I think it was Lawrence that had mentioned it. I don't know who came up with the actual name, but I think Lawrence was the one that took action. That we're like, what if we all came together? So about a week or two after the event, Lawrence sends me a link and he's like, dude, what if we do the marketer's mansion and we rent this big ass, badass freaking house on the top of the mountain and we split it between 5 people and it's cheap as hell. I was like, holy shit, this is genius. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, dude, I'm like, I am in, dude. You know what I'm saying? So like, I know I went there for the first month and then I went away for a little bit because I still had a lease on my place. And then I ended up getting rid of my place, got rid of all my stuff. Boom, I moved to the marketer's mansion. I was like, I'm out. I'm like, I want to try something new out. And like, that's obviously where we met. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're a badass freaking guy doing the copywriting, which I've seen a lot of your growth. You've grown like crazy since then too.
Thank you.
I was still a rookie. I mean, even then, like, since then we've done like in one of our stores, we've probably done like over $40 million in revenue, right? In one of our stores, we've done like over 40 million in revenue. But at that time at the marketer's mansion, I think that I only got to the point, I think the very first time that I went for that first month, right before I left, like I had just hit my first $1,000 day, and that's not profit either, so we're talking about like maybe $200 profit or something like that. We're so excited about it, like that was my first time, like, oh shoot, it's working, because previously I had failed, kept on going, failed. And then when we came together as a group, basically mentorship all around us, and even like people like yourself, like we were surrounding ourselves by that people that were just giving us little nuggets of information, which accelerated our growth like crazy.
Dude, it was one of the most fun. I mean, I didn't live there, but I visited you guys every day, basically.
Oh, you were there all the time.
Yeah, I was there all the time.
Anyone. Yeah, you were there more than anyone else.
I was there all the time because I'm like, these guys are killing it, and I'm able to hang out with them. I'm just going to hang out with them till they say, get the hell away from me, dude. So, but I just remember I was like, wow, this is like, how can you not grow here? Because the reason I loved hanging out there all the time was like, you guys would work outside. Obviously, you had this amazing view overlooking like Arizona. It was beautiful. And it's just like so much growth happened. I was doing joint ventures with some of you guys. We were doing little interviews. I was helping you guys with copy for free. You were showing me how to run ads and stuff. It was like, I still remember, and people in Arizona, you guys made an impact, like even years later. Jeff Fagan, a lot of these guys who I'm still connected with now, they all go back to the marketer's mansion as like the thing, like, man, remember that marketer's mansion? So you guys made a huge impact, and it never left. So you guys are still here, man. We miss you. But
yeah, I want to go visit. But it's like we had so much fun, and everyone. The thing is, what I loved about Arizona was that like everyone was so helpful to each other. It was ridiculous. Like I'd never experienced anything like that. Like even coming back here, like I don't find it to that degree that we had, where we're all like brothers and like compadres, just wanting each other to succeed. It wasn't a competition,
right? So what happened from your Shopify stuff to get you to where you are now? Because there's a big jump from where I remember when Damien had his like first $1 million year. We all went out to like dinner or something like that. And I remember you had like a few $1,000,000 under your belt too. And I was like, wow, this guy's made like a few million, like that's crazy. And now to hear $40 million in sales and revenue, and let's start diving into like what you're doing now, because, and I'd like to know, how did you transition? Was it a mental thing? How did you transition from just being like this Shopify guy or this e-com guy to like really building a big business where you're acquiring other companies? We can talk about some of the acquisitions you guys have done, but let's dive into that, man.
Yeah, I mean, again, it comes back to like, I was just so hungry, right? And I always wanted to like learn. So like, I also get mentorship by like some of the top people in the world, like two of my main mentors, I would say, is like Dr. John DeMartini. So he's
Wow.
freaking he's like one of the top mentors, I believe, one of the smartest people on the planet by far. He's like a modern day Aristotle. So he's one of them. There's another guy named Rob James and Sue James, his wife. They do something down here in South Florida called Self-Discovery Life Mastery. And it's like being around people that just have such a big vision and big picture, it helps you to see further. And it's like, you know, if you really want to do, I would say it starts kind of like with my big vision of what I want to create, and everything else starts just coming together. It's like one of my mission statements goes, we want to help, we want to bridge the gap between technology and mankind's wisdom. You know, as you see today, we have all these technocrats, all these politicians, that they're just very unconscious beings that don't give a fuck about anything but making money. You know what I mean? And like, and I've seen it too, like, because I've worked with politicians, high level politicians, Fortune 500 companies. When Digital Age Business, we got to work on some really cool stuff, which also made me into a better marketer by having the marketing agency, because I got to spend and test on other people's budgets and stuff like that to figure out the hell's going on, you know, learning from the outside. But what ends up happening is like, I have a big vision that I want to create something revolutionary and impactful for humanity. So it's like that big vision is like a big part of it. And just staying hungry, having these mentors that could guide me, someone that's already been down there, or they just think so audaciously, and like just hustling very hard, and then just putting those pieces into play and just being around the right people. So like what ended up happening, so we started to build our company. So what's funny about this, like ever since 2016 that we had launched our company, our main e-com brand, we literally launched about 6 businesses in the same time. Okay. And believe it or not, while we're building this, while we're getting up to this $40 million in revenue, we actually, as a matter of fact, we actually were working on a project called Pitch Investors Live, which that actually took up the majority of my time, probably like
I remember this.
Yeah. So 2018, you know, 2019, that took the majority of our time, which is crazy because how much further would we have been in this other venture? And we spent a lot of money. Like I spent, I don't know, like $1.5 million into it. And then it got to a point where it was like, okay, I need to concentrate on my other businesses or I'm just going to have no business. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
Especially when the pandemic happened, that completely switched because we lost like all of our potential clients and everything like that. Even in our e-com store, we lost our international shipment. You know, we almost went out of business. Like we almost went out of business completely with Pitch Investors Live. Our couple e-com brands that we had completely we were just getting slapped over the head. And luckily we did such a hard pivot in 2020, right before Mother's Day. It was like a perfect storm. Everything was closed. People just got their stimulus checks. And we pivoted so hard and we literally absolutely smashed it. We did $396,000 in a day. Okay. Oh, like about like 11,000 units or something like that is what we sold. And that was with running out of 75% of our revenue. I mean, of our products. We sold out of 75% of them. We did like $2 million that week. And that kind of put me like, okay, how do I think bigger? How do I elevate this? So I was like, okay, we're going to go and raise $5 million. Because I was like, you know, through Pitch, I kind of learned like you can use other people's money too. You don't have to be the self-funder. There's people out there that they see a model, they're like, they'll put money into it. So we were introduced to a family office. And then they were actually potentially wanting to take us into a SPAC or figuring out how to invest in us because they don't invest in companies unless they're public.
Well, if you can't, can you go into what a SPAC is real quick?
Yeah, so a SPAC is a special operations vehicle that is public, that what they do is kind of like a shell that ends up acquiring other companies to take them from the private sector into the public sector so they can raise money way easier, also elevates the value of the SPAC itself. And now it's publicly traded, which is easier to make sales. Like if you want to sell the company, it's easier to do, brings up the value, gets a lot more investors possibly involved because now they could just buy from the public markets and such. So it's pretty damn good, right? Yeah. So they end up finding a jewelry company that wanted to potentially acquire. So we started negotiating at the end of 2020. And then in the beginning of 2021, last year, in February, we were acquired by a public company. So we got acquired by, and instead, here's the thing. And instead, how I thought about this, instead of taking a whole bunch of cash, what I did is I ended up taking a major share in the public company. So now I'm a major shareholder. I'm the second largest shareholder in a public company because instead of taking cash, I'm like, you know what, let me look at this further down the road.
Wow, that's real long-term thinking there. Not a lot of people can do that.
Yeah, I mean, most people don't want to do that. You know,
Yeah.
they're not willing to take the chances, but I'm like more of a chance. Like I saw the opportunity and I knew like if I hustle my ass off and did it the right way, we'd be good. So then another 4 or 5 months later, I started having conversations with Don Wilson, which if you guys don't know who Don Wilson, he's one of the OGs, right? Like the OGs of the ecom Teespring days, had like one of the first print on demand companies that, you know, got integrated into, I think they were the first, if I'm not mistaken, into Etsy and Amazon and some of these other platforms. So he was OG marketer, internet marketer. Like I used to look up to him back in the days. We started having conversations with him. They had done already $131 million in revenue and we ended up acquiring them. So like, not only am I that I make a good move, it's like now we're backed by basically a family office. Basically there's a billionaire behind us that believed in what we were going to do. And now we acquired them. We're looking to acquire other companies. We ended up getting like a factory in Turkey to like produce stuff for us. So it's like, yeah, things have just like accelerated big time. And it's just thinking much bigger and willing to go out there and just do the things that, one thing I realized is like all these things that we think all these people are smarter than us, they're not fucking smarter than us at all. They're just more willing, more audacious, and in the right circles.
Wow.
They're definitely not smarter at all. Like that is a misconception 100%. Like, and the more that I started becoming an intellectual, the more I realized is like being an intellectual is actually not the right formula at all. Like actually the most intellectual people are the ones that work for audacious motherfuckers like Henry Ford, right? Like Henry Ford was known as stupid, yet he had the top freaking, you know, scientists, freaking producers, manufacturers, economists working for him. And they are like, this guy's not educated as fuck. So it's like, it's way different than people think it is. Like this whole intellectual thing is overrated. And the more I start to learn this, the more I realize it's like, it's actually a handicap. The more that you live in here, it's more of a handicap than coming from like the heart and being present. It's actually a handicap. And people might disagree with me, but I would strongly suggest that now that I see it and I see the great masters of history, it comes more from like presence, vision, and getting out of here, getting out of the head.
Yeah, well, I mean, the fact that you were able to position yourself now as like one of like the kind of the second guy or the right-hand man type of deal in this big company. I mean, that's like such a, I don't want to call it simple, but that's such a simple little transition where instead of getting all this upfront gratification, all this money up front, you're doing this and putting yourself in a position so that in the future, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if we hear Jonathan Foltz, newest billionaire or something like that. Wouldn't even shock me. It just makes so much sense because that's like the path that I see from the outside where you've just put yourself on the right path, the right vehicle, and surrounding yourself with all the right people. It's very cool to see just the transition, hearing you say, I think that's something that really sticks with me. The fact that you were able to put aside the instant gratification of money for this position. It seems so trivial, I think, for maybe some people who aren't paying attention, but it's such a big move. I'm curious, what's kind of the next thing for you now? Because you're in this really cool position where you're acquiring companies. Gear Bubble, you're talking about Gear Bubble, you said, right? So
yeah, we acquired Gear Bubble. I was just on a call with him right now, and like we're looking at other companies to acquire as we speak, right now.
So what's the plan for you now? What's like the play over the next maybe 3-5 years? And if you have further, that's fine. But really, what's like that next play for you?
So under this vehicle, under the public vehicle, we want to acquire more companies. We would like to uplist to the NASDAQ. So that's something that we would like to do. So uplist to the NASDAQ, which would be a freaking, you know, like a dream come true to ring a bell, you know what I'm saying? So like uplist to NASDAQ would be something we would like to do at some point in time. Acquire more companies there, and then possibly us get acquired. So it's also possible in the near future that we might get, you know, one of these big companies, because we like do jewelry, you know, we do like different lifestyle stuff for women and everything like that. Again, we might be doing other e-com stuff because we're looking for e-com companies in general that we can help elevate to come into this vehicle. And it's like try and get ourselves acquired or just get it systematically running on its own and everything like that. And one of my other big passions, obviously, is like crypto DAOs, NFTs, that space is like huge. And then we have another brand that we've been working on. Like we had to slow it down just because we had to put more attention into this vehicle, that the public vehicle that we're in now, because it also has a huge potential outcome, is a company called The Digital Man. So The Digital Man is like a futuristic lifestyle brand for men. And I consider myself like a digital frontiersman or a digital man.
I still got the shirt, dude. I got the digital frontier. I wear it like every other day.
Dude. So it's like that is still taking place. And instead of digital frontiersman, it's called The Digital Man. And we sell advanced products and we want to make it blockchain enabled. So it's going to be like a blockchain based e-com company, like almost like a Nike, almost like the way I tell people, it's like, pretend that you go 5-10 years into the future and you come back in time and you land in this time period and you have like an entrepreneur, visionary architect of the future. Like he's there standing with you, and we're going to support people by giving them the technologies, the gear, gadgets, stuff like that for you to basically have the highest level of success, look good while doing it and everything like that. It's almost like a Nike of the futuristic man, basically. And that really gets me excited also. So like while we're doing all this and I'm learning about the public sector and Wall Street, we're obviously in Wall Street, SEC regulated now. It's a complete different, I like never expected that shit at all. To be honest, zero expectation of that. I'm like, public sector, okay.
Dude, it's so cool. It's so cool because it's just very rare to see these types of transitions. Most people get stuck in whatever vehicle they're currently in. They never know how to upgrade that vehicle. And that's something you've done very well. Before we wrap this up, let's make it real granular, I think the word is. For the folks who may be making like in their e-com store, $100,000 or up to a couple $100,000 a month in revenue, what would you tell them to give them some good advice to maybe take it to that next level? Because I know a lot of our viewers are around that level.
Yeah, and that's a big feat within itself. So like anywhere like lower than that and to that range, I mean, I would say that like Brian Rowland. So I got to talk with Brian Rowland about like 5 years ago at a conference by what's his name? The name of the conference was like the Time Collapse Mega Conference, and it was Ed O'Keefe. It was Ed O'Keefe.
Okay, yeah.
Ed O'Keefe's event, and I got to meet Brian Rowland, got to chat with him for a little bit, which was super cool because he's a freaking beast. If you guys don't know who he is, he's freaking badass. And what ends up happening here is that he's like, one of the things that stood out to me is like, hire people that you can't afford. So I was like, damn, I was like, okay. I was like, it kind of makes sense, but it doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? So it's like, but he had a point though, it can be dangerous because obviously it depends on where your capital is and everything like that. But the point of it was that if you hire people you can't afford, so people that are really fucking good, they value themselves high. And the more they value themselves, usually they'll value money high too. So you end up getting like another version of yourself, or you just get really good people in whatever field it is, especially however important it is, and they'll help elevate the company a lot. So I think like the more that we bring on really good players to the team, it really creates like fluidity and, less mistakes. You actually end up making more money. They more than pay for themselves by putting those proper people into place. So like, I think that's like a major contribution there. Like, I think that's like super important to hire the right people, creating really good systems, like staying agile as hell, because I've been talking about, I'm sure the shirt that you have says the digital revolution, I think.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So dude, I've been talking about this forever, and more than ever, these last 2 years, have we seen a true digital revolution come to fruition in a way that has never been seen before. Like I would say I'm a revolutionary in the fact that I see what's going on in the world, and we're going through a huge transition. And the more that you get digitally enhanced, and you're able to pivot and move and adapt faster than anywhere. Like I'm a big believer, like the super smart people do not impress me. I'll tell you right now, the super smartest people no longer, they used to. I mean, obviously, look, I have freaking an Einstein thing right there. They used to impress me, okay? But what impresses me now is more like audaciousness and presence. And people that tap into that is much more powerful than the people that are over intellectuals. And then the one factor, so instead of IQ, I look at AQ now. So adaptability quotient. So being able to adapt on a dime is key, and luckily in this company, in this public company, usually there's red tape, and there is some red tape, there has to be. But we're still extremely adaptable, and we switch on a dime on many ways. And that's how we were able to get ourselves to the point of where we're at now. And in ecom in general, like if you're not adapting like crazy and moving and shifting, like you are going to be made obsolete, and it's only going to accelerate. Ray Kurzweil talks about the law of accelerating returns, and we're going into a time and point, and I love this subject. We can't go into it now, but basically we're going through a hockey stick curve of technology, right? So we used to be here, we used to be here, we used to be here. We're like right here, and we're about to start going straight up. So how fast the world is moving, if you're not present and aware, intuitive, your intellectual capabilities are going to be gone quick as they can be. So it's like, I don't worry about the intellectual side as much. You know, strategy is important, don't get me wrong, but it's like being present as can be and hyper aware of your surroundings and letting intuition guide you. Because I would say intuition, although I'm a data guy, intuition has been way more important than actually looking at real deal data and what's going on in strategies and this mastermind and this and everything like that. No, there's a difference now, and I see it going to take hold a lot more in the future.
What an answer, dude. I love this. And you know what? You're right. You've been talking about how we're going into you've been talking about the digital revolution for years. And so you've been ahead of your time, dude. So when Jonathan speaks, guys, you want to listen. So dude, thank you so much for coming on the show. Where can people learn more about you and find out some stuff?
Yeah, I mean, follow me on Instagram. For some reason, I'm tending to be more on Instagram and everything like that. So it's Rain in the Making with periods in between. You know, check out our brand, The Digital Man. Our public company is Burgio, so BRGO. You can follow us. I know Stockwitz like has a bunch of avid people and like investors following us and stuff like that. And then from there, I would say like Facebook, you can always send me a message. So if you, I think it's facebook.com/Jonathan Foltz, but you know, Instagram is like a place that you'll find me more. And I do a lot of stories. I still love to fucking teach. I freaking love it still. I talk about crypto, the future. I like politics. So like, you'll see me getting it more into more impact related political stuff, because I believe that, you know, if people don't stand up for what is right and just at these times and points, we could be leading into, you know, darker times. And that's not necessary as long as people, you know, wake up, see what's going on, pay attention to history, you know, so that we could go in the proper direction during this digital revolution.
I love it, man. Guys, make sure you follow Jonathan Foltz. Amazing person, amazing marketer, amazing businessman. Thank you so much for coming on the show, man.
All right, my brother, always glad to be here, and it's great speaking to you again, man.
Talk soon.
Appreciate it.